Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I would like to thank Dominic for chairing this session and Ralph Baker for the invitation. So before going into the topic of teaching big data, I have a disclaimer to do. I'm brand new at the United Nations. I just joined the Statistical Institute for Asia and the Pacific in June. And so my apologies for everybody that is involved in training and that I'm not citing here. I'm not fully aware of what is going on there. And all the views here express only myself and that are biased by 20 years of experience in the academics. So teaching with a question mark. Why this question mark about teaching? So as you all know, there is a difference between teaching and training, right? Teaching is about knowledge and instruction. This is the kind of things that we learn at school, and training is about developing abilities, skills through practice with instruction and supervision. Of course, when we do training, we have to do teaching before, and at the SIAP, we do both in most of our courses. But I wanted to put that on the table as an introduction here, that there could be teaching and training. I also entitled my presentation, Teaching Big Data, but big data here is a shortcut for new data sources and big data. So it's in a very broad sense. So why do we need to teach big data? With COVID-19, we have seen that NSO has to adapt. NSO, in fact, had new needs. And in fact, I think they also had now new missions. This mission include to provide decision-making data for governments, for responsible for data dissemination, for data-driven policies for politicians and for journalists and for a global audience, which is quite new, I think, at least with these constraints and timelines. So collecting big data is already an emerging trend within the NSO, and we know that they can complement official administrative data. And this is quite difficult to integrate, by the way. But this collection of big data is necessary and critical when it comes to emergency decisions, such as decisions taken during COVID-19 or for disasters. So this new constraint and new timelines, but some NSO have the resources to handle this big data and access to them. So it's an opportunity, but there are also some challenges to that. And I will come back to that in a minute. So I think it's really important, and hence this session here during this conference. So how can we help? Well, there are already many courses at SIAP that include GIS, data scanner data, web scraping, text mining, and we use R or Python that are the new tools in data science that use these languages. We have a course on big data with COSTATS since 2016. There is this course on innovation in use of new data sources and methodology for SDGs, ICT innovation for modernizing official statistics, data visualization with Paris 21, and a seminar on statistical capacity building for new data sources. And we expect to have many more resources on our LMS right now, because right now we are only teaching and training online. There are also many other resources online at the United Nations, on the Global Working Group Marketplace, on the global platform, at the SDG Learn, also at the World Bank with the Open Learning Campus, at Eurostat, at the FAO, everywhere. And there are MOOCs and platform tutorials and online university. So there are resources out there already. But I want to emphasize the fact that we will focus, and we should focus on some elements. So the first thing I have to say is that many of the courses, at least the courses we have at the SIAP, and many of the courses in different organizations already include chunks of big data. For example, in the course of gender statistics, my colleague has been introducing some data analytic part, and within this data analytics, they use that satellite data to enrich the survey about women marriage in Bangladesh. And they use also some predictive tools to help enrich the survey and the analysis at all. In a system of environmental and economic accounting, also they use satellite images and land recognition to enrich this accounting. In a statistical business register, for example, they could be some web scraping techniques so that you can gather information about firms, about M&E, or their structure, and a different firm they own in different countries. Of course, in data visualization course, we need to focus a little bit more on maps maybe, and also on big data visualization. And metadata, we need also some definition on how to put metadata, big data metadata there. So there are chunks of big data everywhere, and this is a growing trend, I believe. So what should we focus on? And here by we, I intend the community, not of course just the SIAP, and it's a personal view. So I think we should focus on new methods. We cannot afford to have people using software, black boxes of programs without a good understanding of the statistical foundation of these programs of software. So I think for data integration, this is very difficult to integrate this sort of non-traditional data into official data. So we need to have some new method, and we need to train for that. Many of this data needs also, or we are tempted to introduce some methods to enrich them or to analyze them using statistical learning, such as machine learning or artificial intelligence. For that, I think we need to teach and to increase the big data literacy, so that people really know how they come from and what we can do or cannot do with that. Because the data generating process of this big data is most of the time unknown, so we have to be careful. It's very different. So I think we should introduce statistical learning in our training, and we should focus on that. Many of these sources of data also include spatial statistics or spatial or geocoded variable there. So aggregating and disaggregating that in the spatial, at the spatial level is also something that is quite tricky, and maybe we should focus on that. Of course, I already say that, but big data visualization to increase visual literacy should be something we should focus on. But we also need practical training. And for the practical training, we probably need before to be fully aware of the theoretical content of that. But I think that the data gathering, whether it is for using satellite data or web scraping or mobile phone data, this process is complex, and we need to have some practical training on that. And I will say a word a minute on how we should do this practical training. Should focus also on the fact that this data need maybe some curation before being used to detect some anomalies. There are a lot of concern, and we have seen that during this conference and also on the Committee of Statistics last week, that many people in NSO wonder about the legal issues about the use of this big data. And so maybe we need some training on that. There are some things that are specific to countries or regions, but there may be some common techniques to anonymize the data that could be shared among NSO. There are also some ethical issues. We know that artificial intelligence is biased by definition by the training data. So we need also maybe to put some practical elements on the training about these issues. In order to be able to have a continuous process that is quite transparent, we need also to build a statistical workflow that starts from data and goes to the report. We know that there are some tools that helps to do that, such as notebooks, like Jupyter notebooks or R Markdown. These things facilitate the integration of the process and the transparency. This also helps collaboration. And we have seen during COVID-19 that many statisticians had to work from home, and maybe they didn't have the practice or the skills to use GitHub, GitLabs, cloud computing, remote access and sharing information together. Of course, it's easier when you have this statistical workflow and the good practical training on that. I also have two remarks about that. I'm focusing here on hardcore training, technical training, but the soft skills are also important because during I say that the NSO have new missions. Within this mission, many statisticians face the fact that they have to do some contracts with some firms, private or firms. So I'm not focusing on soft skills, but I think they are very important. And how to disseminate, how to communicate is also very important. So how to teach now? Of course, we have to teach online, and this is not new, but this will stay, and this is a really serious trend. We have to maybe try with micro-learning, short self-paced learning on specific topics. We can use social learning. Many NSO have provided a lot of information and have done a lot of experiments with their data. So this knowledge should be shared and fertilized among all the other NSO, and we should help in that. So we should help doing learning by doing and engage learner into action. We should also try to do collaborate learning with case studies, peer review, teamwork, and we should also try to innovate on that, and that will be my conclusion, I think. There is right now a hackathon using maritime data, AES data right now. By using this contest, also by using games, as we used recently at the SIAP, we can innovate in learning, and that will be very interesting in the future for the profit of all our colleagues statisticians. Thank you very much.